system is now activated. The ship will detonate in T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey folks, exciting day. New pin day. This is actually my very first new in-box pinball machine. The other ones that I've gotten before I have picked up without a box, so this is the first time I can actually do an unboxing video. I am Dave Brennan. You might know me from TurboGrafx-7 Twitch channel as well as the Buffalo Pinball Twitch channel. I am also the tech service manager for American Pinball. So I've worked on some machines a few times, but I haven't had the opportunity to pull one out of a box before. It's been a long time waiting for this alien to show up. It showed up today. I did some measuring on it, and the box is 32 inches long and my doorways are 31. So that's why I'm dressed in a coat and hat, because it's cold in the garage in December here in Wisconsin. So I already kind of inspected the box when the FedEx driver dropped it off. There was one taped up spot on the corner that coin taker taped up. I took a peek inside, and I mean, this is the back box side, or it should be, because this is the do not truck side of the box, meaning don't put your forklift on this side. So it looks like they took a look at it and taped it up, but I didn't see anything from the inside. It's kind of hollow in that spot. Anyway, so I'm going to unwrap it from this side. So we'll cut the straps here. But yeah, the box is too wide to get through my doorway as is, so I can't open it in the warm house. Anyway, so I'll cut these. Alright, so I'll start by just cutting the straps. It's just strapped to the pallet here. And so I should be able to tip it down on the truck this side, because this should be the bottom of the game. So I'm actually gonna open up the top and move the flap all the way over, and then I can also confirm that it is in fact the bottom of the game. And then I can lay it down on this side, and then I can slide it out. Big old piece of foam on the top. Very, very dense. I'm guessing in sea containers they probably stack these too high. Yep. So it is in fact the top. Get these straps out. Take a little furniture blanket here, put it on the floor, give it something to slide on here. Probably need to move the box back a little bit more, so when I tip it down it kind of lands on there. So, be able to slide it off the pallet. everything down. This would be the front coin door of the game. You can see I got the legs here. A little bit of smush and whatever's in this box. Find that out. Set her down. Well, there's the heavy legs. Let me back the camera up a little bit here. Alright. So, I'm going to have to set down another blanket here so I can slide the game out the rest of the way. Let's see. What's in the smush box? Smush box sounds like leg bolts. Yep. Kind of a big box for power cord, leg levelers. Looks like some instruction cards. I go on the apron. 6 pinballs. Looks like some keychains, a couple of flipper rubbers, some decals. So this is stuff that would normally go in the goodie bag in the coin box. Don't know why they put it in this big box. Maybe it was to fill a void filler, I'm guessing. But yeah, this could have all went in the coin box. So set this off to the side here. Looks like another, yeah. So big void filler. That's probably what they were doing. It's just a big giant square. Or not square, rectangle of foam. Void filler. Looks like, appear to be standard Williams legs. So set those off. Oh, another blanket here. Looks like they bagged the whole game. Which, you know, it's a big bag. Could be, could have just stretch wrapped it. They got foam on each side, some condensed foam on the sides. Doesn't look like anything on the bottom. That's the truck side. Thin foam sheet on the top. So, should be able to grab this. The strap that goes around the game here. Pretty heavy. Get this on top here. Pretty well out of the box. Yeah, it looks like foam on the inside bottom as well it sits on. So basically foam sheets on the other side. The board is a pretty thick double wall. Seems pretty typical for what most manufacturers use. I don't see any stamp on the box as far as the strength of the board, but anyway. It's a different career of the past. It was probably like a 50 55 ECT box. Anyway, so just going around the box here, let me point the camera down some in the game. So you can see the whole thing is bagged up. It's like a giant mattress bag or something, and then they just kind of tape it on the back here. I'm guessing because they ship it in a sea container, so maybe in case it gets wet. But you know, you'd think that the open end would be on the coin door side because that's the end facing up, but you know, it doesn't look, it didn't appear to be any water, anything like that. So all right, my knife go. Cut the tape in the back. So there is a strap on the that goes along the whole length of the game here. Make sure you don't cut that strap until you're ready, because that's holding the back box to the cabinet. So what I'm doing now is this giant bag, I'm putting the underside piece, kind of tuck it underneath the game, and so when I stand it up straight, I'll be able to pull the whole bag off. That's the plan anyway. There we go. Alright. Alright. Stand it up. Get up my fingers under here. All right. Yep. All right. Position the camera again so you can see. Whew. All right. So I'll spin it around here. You can kind of get a look at the cabinet. Looks to be in good shape. I don't see any scuffs or anything on the decals. Looks like they did a nice job putting them on here. They're nice and glossy. Just first impressions out of the box. This is nice. It's the bottom of the cabinet is all a laminated plywood here. So that's pretty cool. The other side appears to be in the same condition here, so I can take off some of this foam. Don't need that. I need the space, or I'll hook it up to the Escalera that's sitting over here, so I can take it down in the basement and unwrap it the rest of the way. So there's really no point of me unwrapping it further than this. And cutting the strap. So let me turn the side here and see the head decals. So yeah, so far so good. It looks like that little ding in the box didn't have anything to do with any damage at all. So yeah, looking really nice. So from here, let me get it strapped to the escalator quick. Get it all charged up. Preparation for today. All right. You know, yeah. Okay. Hey, and if you want to get yourself a new Escalera, talk to Zach at Flipping Out Pinball. I actually had this for years. They're pretty nice. If you're moving around more than a couple games a year, it is a handy tool, so I can do this by myself. Need a little bit more slack. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Let me back up here. Tilt the camera a little. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video, take this down the steps, and then from there I can show you the rest of the setup. So, see you in a minute. Well, I'm down in the basement now, and got it kind of set up in a space where I have some room to work and put the legs on. But before I get started, I thought it would be useful for people that are getting this game to know what the dimensions are out of the box. So as far as the height, we're at 52.5. The top to bottom, when it's folded up, it's at 29.5, and then the total width for going through a door, you're looking at just over 27.5, about a 1/16 of an inch more than 27.5. So those are the folded up dimensions of the game. Upon further inspection of the cabinet, I mean, it's in really good shape. The graphics for it are really nice. Initially, I thought these were like a matte finish on the decals, but it's actually quite glossy. I can kind of come in here a little closer and show some of the detail, but it is shiny. So you can see the reflection of the floor out of the cabinet, and then if you look at like the alien head, it's got some pretty good detail on it, so pretty cool. I see they already have some plastic leg protectors. In fact, I'm going to work on that while I'm talking. So plastic leg protectors for the legs, and it's nice that it's got this cutout in the decal, so it's less chance of it scuffing and scraping, so that's good. My tool bag over here, cut the tape. These just look to be typical Williams legs you can get off the shelf at like Pinball or something. They're individually bagged too. So I'm going to start on the front legs. So as I said earlier, I'm hoping that I can get this all set up and ready for streaming. So if you've seen me and my streaming partner Ryan on Buffalo Pinball, we stream Fridays at 8 p.m. Central on Buffalo Pinball Twitch channel. So as soon as I get this set up and make any tweaks or adjustments needed, we will be streaming it. And I am planning to record any of the tweaks and things that I make to the game, any adjustments needed, just so you can see, you know, here's some of the stuff that I'm seeing. If anything needs adjustment, I'm going to record that. So I did mention that I also am the tech service manager for American Pinball, but as you can see in the background, I am also a consumer of pinball machines, just like the people watching this video. So my opinion is an educated one, but I'm going to look through the lens of a pinball consumer, just like you would, and give you my opinions based upon that. And if there's any tips or things that I see as I go through, I will certainly share them with you. So when you're setting up your game, you can do the same thing and learn from it. So I'm going to screw these leg levelers in quick. Just do the front ones first. And if this is your first pinball machine, they typically come with a bolt on there, and that's to lock the foot in place once you have it leveled. A lot of people ask me, what do I do for leveling the game? So you're going to need to, I'll have to look in the manual for this as well, but find out what your pitch is supposed to be for up and down, and it's supposed to be level left to right, but front to back it should be pitched at a certain degree. What I like to use is there's an app for the iPhone called Pin Guy, and it's free, and it is quite a bit more accurate than just using a bubble level. So when I get to that point, I will show that as well. So for the front legs, I just put them on all the way down, and just leave it like that until we get ready to level. And then when it gets to its final place, depending on how you put this up or down, then you can lock it in with that nut to keep it in place. So and for the back legs, I typically just put them in like halfway until I know where I'm at as far as pitch. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Spin the bolt all the way down. It's always handy. I keep a ton of these on hand whenever I get a new game. These are like always rusty, or not new, a used game. These are always rusty, and so I just keep a bunch on hand, because when you're putting it on your carpet and you got rusty leg levelers, if they ever get wet, you're going to get rust on your carpet. So not a bad idea to keep some on hand if you buy used games. Okay. I'm going to spin this around. Okay. So one thing I did notice here power button, and this is just a observation, I noticed that it was quite a bit further back than, say, a Williams game. I know that they modeled this off of a Williams super pin wide body, and so we're sitting at 16 inches to the back or 15 to the front of this power switch. And so on a Williams game like the Flintstones or Congo, sitting right beside here, where you would be at about a foot to the back, so your switch would be about in here. But we'll see once I get into look inside the cabinet. There's probably a reason why they placed it there, but at least it's on the bottom of the cabinet, which is nice. I know that some other manufacturers have relocated that, and that can be a pain, especially when you're trying to you know, turn on your game when you have in between some other games. So that is nice. Look like typical leg bolts you can get at any parts manufacturer using a 5/8 socket. So I'll take the levelers that are screwed all the way in, go on the front, get those started. Oh, so I will make mention, this is another thing that I do for games, and if I see it, I'll point it out. So we're tapping into brand new bolt receivers, and there is a chance that they might need to be cleaned out. So it helps to have, so these are kind of going in a little bit tight. Let me see if, so you could, if you have a tap for it, you can tap those out and make it smoother. So seems okay. Just make sure you don't cross thread it. One thing with that I've seen a lot, especially on used games, is somebody will cross thread the bolts, and as soon as you cross thread one and you move the game around a few times, take the legs off a few times, that one bolt that was cross threaded gets moved around and it messes up even more holes, and you have to tap it out. So just pay attention when you're screwing these in. It should go in smooth. Start it by hand. Don't start it with the impact or drill, just so you know that you got clean threads. Let me get it started. There we go. This one is turning a bit hard. So I'm going to pause real quick. I'm going to grab the tap. I'll be right back. Alright, so this is 3/8 by 16 tap, and you can have the female version of it as well for bolts, but it's always a good idea as a pinball collector to have these, because that's the common threads, 3/8 by 16. So if you ever have a set of bolts or leg bolt receivers that need to be cleaned out, just run that through them quick and it'll make them super smooth. Could also be the alignment of the bracket with the holes. Doesn't look like there's a ton of play in the drill holes in the wood of the cabinet versus the leg bracket. So could just be slightly off because of the tolerance there, but I'm just going to run it through, just make sure that threads are good before I run the impact on it. Alright, the top one was better. Alright. Oh yeah, much smoother. Okay. Alright. Move this stuff. Alright, now I'm going to actually put it on a cart when I fold it down here. You can use a stool as well. Well, actually I have a stool right here. I'll just use that rather than a cart. Let me back it up a little bit. Hold it down. Grab my stool. These are not light, so if you're not used to lifting them up, get some help doing this. Don't want to hurt your back. Alright. Alright, let me move the camera around so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. Alright. Couple more legs. Grab the bolts here. Okay. So let's see how they did here with the cap on these. That one's going in pretty smooth. That one's okay. It'll pass. Alright, next. These are a little bit tight. I'm going to run the tap through this one real quick too. Might as well take care of it now so you don't have to mess with it later. doing this, let me get in here a little bit closer and show you what I'm seeing. So this is kind of an interesting thing that looked more like an afterthought, is the power cord, and looks like they just kind of tapped into this vent here rather than having a cutout specifically for the plug. It's more cosmetic than anything. I mean, it works. I just not used to seeing that. If you look at Williams games or Stern games, American games, Spooky games, they have a dedicated spot where the plug would go. But I suppose that works too. It's the back of the game, so whatever. They got a nice sticker there with the serial number, manufacturer date. Looks like 10 of 21. So just made. I mean, the time that it took to go on the boat from Italy to here, that was pretty quick. Alright, last leg. There, much smoother. So probably not a bad idea to run a tap through so you don't cross thread anything. Makes putting the legs on a little easier. Alright. That's done. Move this out of the way. Alright, coming down. Alright, so now back to this strap that we've left on this whole time. Oh, might as well show this while I got it here, since it's down. You can see some of the connections here. Going up to, looks like a computer and monitor. So I got HDMI cord here, USB, couple of USB connections. Looks like is this like an Ethernet cord? Another plug here. So it's always good when you're folding up the back box to make sure that you're not tugging on the cords. So it's good. They got some strain relief here, ties so that it doesn't get tugged on. But you can, yeah, there was one USB plug that was a little bit loose right here. To make sure that those are snug, pushed in. A couple of other connectors here in the back that make sure that those don't get pulled on. Okay. Back the camera up. Alright, moment of truth. We're good here, so just go ahead and cut that. Take this off. Alright, move this camera to the other side. Fold this up. It does have a buckle here for the latch, so it'll get snapped in place here. So let me fold this up. Again, making sure that you're not pulling anything on the wires in the back box. Oh, wait, I forgot something. This is interesting. Show it since I'm here. Okay. Inside here, there's a foam piece, a foam block that I'm not sure why that's in there. Could be, you know, I bet. Let me get a light here. See in there a little better. So I'm betting the reason that is there is because typically there's wood blocks on the sides of the cabinet, so on the right and left, that stop the playfield from sliding all the way back into the cabinet. And I think the reason that that is there is to prevent that from happening. So when this thing is standing vertical in the box, that it's got something stopping it from moving, because I'm not seeing blocks on the sides of the cabinet where you would normally see them. So that, I bet this foam needs to stay there in order to, so that doesn't happen. So if you ever have to move this game again, but I'll investigate more once I fold this head up for the back box. Alright, going up. Shut up, Dave. Just fold the dang thing up so we can see it, right? Alright. That foam is kind of preventing the wires from going down easily. So just, you gotta tuck as you go. Get them in there. So I have to manipulate them a bit. So keep that in mind when you're folding this back box up. I think I got it. Alright, snapped closed. Ta-da! There we go. Alright, let's see what we got. Yes, everybody wants to see the shiny. Okay, get the foam out of the way. Alright, the shiny. Cool. Got some foam on the top. Thank you for doing that, Pinball Brothers. It does have some film on the, this is a chrome T-molding. So you'll have to peel off the blue, but I'll wait to do that later. Looks like I also have some film here that needs to be peeled off. Let me get something. Well, I paused the video for a second because I started looking at the back glass, or looks like plexiglass, and I noticed I don't have the key. And I'm looking around. Remember that box that was smushed inside the big box that had all the stuff, so power cord and that. Like, where are the keys? And looking around in here, and I didn't see the keys, so I went back out in the garage, and this is a different box, but they were like underneath the flap of the box. So I guess they don't have a shooter rod to zip tie them to. I mean, they could. Maybe that is the best place to put it. Maybe on the, could zip tie it to the buckle of the back box here, so people can find it. But mine was hiding in the flap of that box. But this stuff could be, this could be put into the into the coin box. Anyway, I'm going to plug this into the back. Get that going. So luckily I did find the keys, so I didn't have to submit a service ticket for that, so that's good. That works. And then the coin, inside the coin door here, you'll see the back box keys. I'm going to take those off the hook, and we got a coin box on the inside, so that's where this stuff can go. I'll put that in there a little bit. But anyway, back to the film here. So I just need to grab a corner, peel this off. Alright, there we go. Ooh. Yeah, it is plexiglass. So, let's see, unlatch that, and you pull up with the lock to get the back glass out. I'm just looking in here just to look in here, because those connections that I talked about earlier are in the back box underneath this speaker, or the monitor, and so those are all plugged in. So there's really not much to mess with. I mean, it looks like the computer and everything all in one in this monitor here. So I'm just going to put that right back. But yeah, this just to show you, looks like it's direct printed on the plexiglass here. So you probably don't want to use anything abrasive to clean that window. And what was it? Bottom goes in first, I think. No, top goes in first. There, I think I got it. Okay. Anyway, so that's that. Alright, now I gotta put the pinballs in. Let me slide this back just a little bit more. I can slide the glass out. Alright, so no lock bar receiver, so it must be buckles. Yep, and they're pretty tight. So on the left and right side, it's going to be some buckles, just like on the back box. So unbuckle those, and you can pull up on the lock bar receiver. Set that off to the side. Close the coin door and slide the glass out. Nice and smooth. It's tempered, just in case you didn't know. It says it right there. Oh, it's neat. Nice beveled edges on the glass. It's nice, and it looks like it was printed from the glass people. It says tempered on it. That's cool. Alright. We get closer here so you can see the playfield. So rather than a lock bar receiver, it hooks in right here with the playfield hangers. Yeah, overall I just kind of going over everything in the game here. Does not look like they did any play testing on it. I don't see any, like, well, maybe a little bit. Yeah, they might have ran a couple balls through it. But I know from the highway ones that these face hugger aliens have broken before, so I'm curious to see if those hold up over time. The ramps look really nice. They look like a polished mirror almost. That's kind of cool. Anyway, oh, there is another, looks like a film here. Peel that off. I know the iPhone people were like, oh my god, peeled off the film. Oh, exposed the shiny. Alright, so I think basically just put the balls in here. I do want to, actually before I do that, I want to lift up the playfield and show what that looks like. Oh. Looks like, so there's a couple of screws here that are locking this in place. So I'm going to take those out. One is just finger tight. The other, I need a screwdriver. Let me do that. There we go. So I wanted to check that foam block in the back. I suspect that it's there so the whole playfield doesn't move back further. Remember, let's see here. I wonder. So there's these buckles. The buckles for the lock bar are here, and they kind of, I think once I lift this up, they're going to fall behind it. So I think when I go to put the playfield back, I'm going to have to like tuck this up. Otherwise, I think I'm not going to be able to get this buckle to be able to latch this closed. The other one seems to be okay. So just making note of that when I lift up the playfield here. Reposition. Okay. So I got those two little screws removed from the playfield hangers, and so I can lift it up now. It's quite heavy. I'm going to tip it all the way up. Let's see here. So yeah, the support rails run the entire length here. Should be able to rest it on the back box. There we go. Alright, all the way forward. Oh, okay. So it's a little bit different mechanism than what I'm used to, but you know, every manufacturer is a little different. The reason for the power switch, so that you got a, looks like the power supply here. It's because the power switch is right here, so that's the reason for the power switch being there instead of, you know, in the front corner here. But underneath the playfield, I mean, it looks super clean thanks to all the LED boards that it has kind of daisy chained through. Just kind of giving it a once over, see if there's anything that looks loose or unplugged. I mean, it did go through a long journey from Italy, so it's a good idea to make sure that isn't something that came unplugged. Just go through and inspect that. I have been following the pin side threads on it, so I know that you know, some of the stuff that people are seeing. One thing that people brought up was the cabinet flipper button switches. So this is actually, it's just a typical leaf switch. There we go. It's a typical leaf switch, and they're talking about the tension. And so on a leaf switch, so you have the different blades, but there is a tension blade right here on this side. So I can see if I can use a switch adjustment tool to kind of tighten that up a little bit more. So what people are looking for is a little bit more resistance when they push the cabinet button. And you can see that they're making it work because they put these spacers in, and typically with cabinet switches, like these spacers are already there, and you have a tension blade that runs the entire length of the switch. So I mean, it's slightly, it's a little bit weaker push because of that, but you know, these look like typical arcade cabinet buttons, so you can do with that what you will. You can easily get different cabinet switches at any parts supplier. So just go through looking for any loose plugs that might have come loose during transit. Not seeing anything immediately. Thing looks to be plugged in. So this was one thing that I noted from Pinside, is the Slingshot coils. See how the leads to this and this coil can move around? See how this can actually touch? I can physically touch the coil stop. So this coil, or these, actually need to be flipped around so they don't touch. And this should actually be, I'll have to look at that when I replace it, or not replace it, but adjust it here. So I might as well just do that now while I got this up. I do like that they put a Molex plug on the coil here, but to have this swivel around isn't good. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. the coil is going to function exactly the same. Whether it's going one, the lug's going one way versus the other. So go ahead and just flip that around. Come on, you. Get out of there. Alright. I got it. Okay. So, coil sleeve. So this should flip like so. But you need to move the coil sleeve. Coil sleeve needs to have the flange going towards the coil stop, and so it should sit like so. Maybe that's why they did that. But see, this still moves around. Interesting. This piece here should be touching this coil bracket right here. So on every pinball machine I've worked on, this goes here, and it's the same, should be the same height as the coil stop, but it's not. So this needs to go, so it's I think the space of this bracket here might be off, but either way, I don't want these lugs to ground out on the coil stop, so I'm still going to switch it. It does have the coil sleeve goes through this bracket, so that's supporting it. So even though this is going to flop around a little bit, it's still better, because I don't want that to spin and touch and ground out, because you got, I'm guessing, 48 volts going to these coils. Or not guessing, it's probably, it is. I can measure it. But I might have to cut a zip tie to connect this plug here. So let me screw this back in. I'm going to do this to both sides. When you're tightening down any coil brackets or coil stops, grab a hold of both the front bracket and the coil stop, and just give it a pinch as you snug it up. There we go. Okay, so it still moves around, but I like that much better because now it can't touch that coil stop there. So I am going to, let's see if I can make this reach. Nope. So I'm going to have to cut that zip tie and move it. Okay, zip tie is cut. There's a couple of them over here, so just give myself a little slack. Connect it back up, and then I have more zip ties so I can put the strain relief back, because you don't want this to be getting tugged on. So let me just zip tie this back up. Get on the other side. There we go. All right. So now I've got to do the other side quick, somewhat quick. So again, pinch the coil stop to the retaining bracket and give it a snug on the screws. Alright, now I'm going to cut this zip tie and give myself some slack so I can plug it back in. Bit more slack. This one might just be one zip tie I needed to cut. Come on, you. All right, got it. Plug it back in. Alright, that one's set. That makes me happy. Alright. Next, I did notice while I was over here unscrewing some stuff, I did see a connector that came unplugged. Right here. You can see that okay? So, again, make sure you check all of your connectors. Looks like this one's out just a little bit. No, that one's okay. But this one definitely came out. So just plug this guy back in right here. Looks like turn it this way. There we go. Okay, so got a little tugged there. All right. Oh, there's another. What's going on with this guy here? This one got, the clip got broke. But that's supposed to snap in place. It's keyed, so it's not a big deal, but now it doesn't have that locking bit, so it is zip tied over here, so I'm not too concerned about it, but something to note. Alright, now I just want to look through since I found some connectors that came unplugged. Just making sure that I don't have anything else that looks loose. Looks good. Sorry, just looking at the back of my head here. But there's a few down in the back. I just want to make sure they're good. Don't, oh, here's one other one right here. And I mean, it's sitting right there, so it says target LED 3. And the other one that I plugged in was target 5. So those two right here. So you got this, looks like an up kicker. Yeah, this is for the scoop here. And so it says target 1 LED. So that was unplugged. Snap that in place. So that's good. Oh, here's another one right here. Target, what's this one? This is another target. Looks like both connectors. So this one is the recharge target, it says on the playfield. It says recharge switch and LED. So that's unplugged. So I'm just gonna go ahead and plug that in. So one must be for the LEDs. Yeah, because I bet the small one is for, it's got to be for the switch send and receive signal, and then the one with the 4 wires in it must be RGB. That's my guess anyway. Educated guess. Alright. Those two are plugged in. What else? Oh, here's another one. Target 3 LED. So that one came undone. It's completely out. Let's plug that back in. Alright, that's done. What else am I seeing? Oh, here's another one. This is target 4 LED. That is also unplugged. Looks like the zip tie slipped a bit. So target 4 looks like to the right of that, what do you call it? The horseshoe ramp. Plug that back in. That's done. Alright, I got one more here that is absolutely loose. Interface to board 4. Over here. Got this braided plug here. It's at the top. So that was half off. Get that plugged back in. The strain relief here for the zip tie is kind of loose, and that could be why. I mean, it's not really a locking plug, but let me put another zip tie on it just to be sure that this is tight. Okay, that one's done. What else? Anything else? Quite a few I'm seeing. They do not, go up here. The flippers do not have end of stroke switches. So they're controlling them, computer controlled for the high and low power. So that tells me that they might have some, we'll find out when I play it, but they might have some issues when you're holding the flipper bat up and you get a ball that comes down and hits it. So you might have to play with the, like a flipper hold boost, perhaps. Yeah, since I found quite a few disconnected connectors, I just want to make sure that I get everything. All right. Plugged in, tight, tight. Alright, I'm not seeing anything else loose, so I think I'm gonna call it good. Nothing back here. Okay, so just kind of neat. They got the tilt bob already installed. It's like a little baby one. It's kind of fun. Let's see. I did have one other friend that got an Alien, and I'll have to check. But he had the start button was had the switch wires reversed on it, so I won't really know until I play. But these micro switches, they have a normally open and normally closed tab to it, and so it should be a normal set for normally open. So when you push the button, it's a switch closure. So I think they just had it on the wrong tab, and you just had to move it over. No big deal. But if you don't know that, then you're going to be scratching your head a bit. Here's in the back of the cabinet. You get the subwoofer speaker and some of the wires here. And there's that foam block. Like I said, I wasn't seeing any blocks that were stopping the playfield from going all the way back, but it could be, there's a reason that they put this block here. And I know that typically there's something on the sidewall that keeps your playfield from going all the way back. It could also be these rails, but for now I'm just going to leave it in there. But yeah, so when you go back to slide this back, make sure it's not wrapped on anything. I think I'm all set. Position this back. Okay, grindy, a little bit grindy going in. Hopefully you don't have to lift the playfield too often. Or maybe you could polish those rails a bit so it slides a little better. But it's okay. I was checking this out earlier. So the playfield hangers. So when I get to the point of pushing this down, like, I'm gonna show this. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So the playfield is touching the right light on your coin door, so I have to shove it back pretty hard in order to get the playfield all the way back, because it's not latching. Okay, so it's supposed to go in these clips. There. Okay. So yeah, it's still touching that wire there for the light. So I could probably move this up some. It's supposed to go in there. And it's also kind of loose. This light here, might need to pinch that down more. But anyway, so like I suspected, the buckles for at least one of them for latching the lock bar in, the one on the left, sorry, my cords are tripping me up here. The one on the left, it will, you kind of have to force it, but you're going to have to lift up on the playfield a little bit to be able to get these buckles up, so it'll stay. And the same thing over here, you got to lift this buckle up, or I mean the playfield, lift up the buckle so you can latch your lock bar. So that's one thing I noticed. Alright. There might be some bending or something I can do so I don't have to do that every time. But then if I bend the buckle, it's probably going to make the lock bar even tighter on the game. Okay. Where are the balls? Finally, pinballs. Sometimes these have like a little oil on them, but just inspect. Probably wipe them off a bit. They seem okay. And look for any corrosion or something. They were in a plastic bag. They didn't have any kind of desiccant in there to stop any moisture. They seem fine. But look for any corrosion. This game does use magnets, so I'd hope that these are standard carbon steel pinballs. I know with the shiny chrome ones, which I don't think these are, with the super shiny chrome ones, you will have issues in games with magnets. So if someone tells you that you should swap out pinballs that just keep that in mind. Don't get the super shiny ones. Get standard carbon steel if you're using them in games with magnets. Alright, 6 pinballs in the trough. Alright, plugging her in. Moment of truth. Oh, flash of light. I got something. Well, the alien stuck his tongue out at me. And then it didn't go back in. Alright. Well, could check out what the service menu looks like quick. System messages. Extend error. Uh-oh. So that's the tongue here. So I'm going to have to look at that closer, why that's doing that. Alright. Yeah, a little bit more investigation. Yeah, well, it's booted up, so that's good. I did plug in those targets, but I see I got what was it? This one I plugged in. There's a couple others down here that were unplugged. It looks like these two are off, and this one's off. So, and then I have another stand-up here that's off. So I'll have to investigate. I remember hearing something about it might not be programmed into the code, but I'll double check connections under the playfield. But anyway, now I'm also noticing that there's no interlock switch on the inside of the coin door here. So that must mean that you have coil power on all the time, whether or not your coin door is open or closed. So this tab is typically where an interlock switch would be. And then I also noticed that they do not have, there's not a plug for a bill acceptor. So if you're an operator, you'll have to do some investigation on being able to plug in your bill acceptor here. They do have the plate, so I assume can probably, well, I know you can tap in because you got power and you got coin switches, so there's a way that you can do it. They just don't have a convenient plug. So alright. Should we start a game? Hopefully the start button works. Oh, credits. He was mad at me because I didn't put any credits on it. No, whatever. Alright, I'll have to change it to free play later.
So you may have figured out we're not home yet.
Hey, look at that. Turn it down a little bit. Alright. So it's not leveled or anything, so this isn't a proper showing. I will set it up and put it into the streaming location, which is right over there that we normally stream at. Again, Buffalo Pinball, Fridays at 8 Central. Ryan and I will stream it at some point here in the very near future. But it appears that it is working. Alright. Cool. Well, I'm not going to play it too much because I actually, because it's not level, and I want to find out a little bit more about everything on it. There we go. I want to find out a little bit more about the game, especially how to play it. I haven't really looked up much of the rules, and then just go through. So I'll do a little bit more deep dive in the function, make sure that all the switches work. So I'll stop the video here and kind of do an assessment of all the functionality of the playfield and what it's supposed to do. If I find anything, I will fire the camera back up and show you what I'm seeing and any adjustments that I need to make. So with that, thanks for watching. Alright, so I'm going through some switch tests just to, before I start playing everything, make sure that things are working. So in order to get into switch test, you can enter into the, yeah, I do have a couple pinballs in my pocket here. That's why that error message was up. So enter into the coin door service menu, hitting the black enter button, and you can get into the tests. And so I'm going to go into switch edge, and it'll give you a whole playfield map of kind of what you're looking at. But so I just wanted to, before I started adjusting anything, I can show on here what I'm seeing. And so basically I'm just looking at, you know, if I hit the switch, does it have register on the switch test? And then I go through and do the ramps, so you have optos in here. So just run through and, yep, right ramp is made, left ramp. I did notice that there's nothing, no protection in the ball drop area, so I'll probably put like a little piece of mylar or something there to, because they're going to constantly be dropping there. Anyway, going through and doing these switch tests, there are proximity switches on the out lanes here, so just run a ball through. So I got left out lane 1 and 2, so those are working, and then going through the lanes, so that's working. Go through spinner. So this right spinner, I saw that the switch is got a wonky bend to it. I'll just show that real quick. This position here. So this is just a micro switch, so when this spins, you should be hearing an audible click from the micro switch. So two things I can see is the switch itself is a little sticky. Like if I push it down all the way, see how it's sticking. So and also it's just not, when this goes and pushes down on it, it's not activating the switch. So this needs to be bent up some. There we go. Maybe it went a little bit too far. There we go. There we go. A little sticky. But yeah, these are typical micro switches. It's weird that it sticks down like that. I need to look at that closer. Why that's doing that. I think the button itself on the micro switch is sticking. Let me check this one on this side. Yeah. So it's the button itself on the micro switch is sticking. So in order to fix that, let me. Alright, so on the inside of a micro switch, this is just one I had on a shelf. So you got a button that you're pushing, right? So same kind of thing, and a lever. So for the spinner arm pushes it down, pushes the little button. Well, on the inside of a micro switch, open this up. Oops. On the inside of a micro switch, it is really it's a make-break switch. So it's a mechanical action where it's pushing the button down, and it's closing the switch. So what can happen sometimes is these can get dirty, or maybe there's like a little bit of oil or something on the metal parts when they made it or something. But what you can do to you don't need to break it apart like this. I'm just showing you that it's literally a leaf switch inside, and it's a make-break switch. And so depending on how you have this plugged in, it's a normally open or normally closed switch. Okay. So what you can do is you can take contact cleaner, and I wouldn't recommend doing this on any other piece of the game, and obviously do it with the power off, but you can spray on that little button of the micro switch, and then you just work the button a bunch to work that cleaner in there, and it should not always, but it should free up the stickiness. So I'm going to power off the game. And then I'm going to put a rag kind of around the area. It'd be nice if you have a straw for this, you can spray it, you can direct the spray. down so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, so this one does not seem to want to cooperate. I might have to get a different switch, but for now, I mean, it seems to be working if you don't push it down all the way. So I'm just going to leave it. But anyway, back to switch testing. Turn the game back on. Alright, back into switch test. Go into the service menu, go into tests, switch edges, and just check all of your switches that when you hit them, they are doing something. Pop bumpers. Looks like they're using quite a few of these proximity switches, so you have to use a ball. So the lane guides, there isn't a wire rollover, so they must be magnetic reed switches. So it's using the ball to test it. So I'm just kind of going through each one here. Looks like there's one up on this lane here. Another one there. Whoop! Lost my ball. But I need 3 for the lock. I'm going through and doing, just making sure that these are all working. Go up through. I already did the ramps. The lock. There's 3 for the lock. So lock 2 should show me the last one locked. So there's lock 1. Okay, so that's working, I think. And then 2 and 3. So I'll have to test that in gameplay. It looks like it's blocking all of the optos in there. So I'll have to run it in gameplay and see that it is in fact getting them all. Alright, so there's that. One thing I have noticed, just cosmetic wise, I mean, you have the shiny ramps, but when they're shiny, it shows more. So as you play it more, this is going to get more and more scratched. So you might have to buff those out after some time. I don't know. But so far, I think all of the stuff works. I haven't tested the drop target mech yet because they're down at the moment. But so far, I think all the switches are working. So coil tests. Let's back out of this. Go into, we can look at all the lamps. So it's going to flash all of them, which is nice. So I'm going to need to check on, like, some of these targets have LEDs in them, and so this one here isn't lighting up. Make sure my camera's pointed so you're seeing the same thing. Yeah, so this one here This one is lighting. This one is not. Looks like the two by this ramp are not lighting up. So I'll need to check those connections underneath. Otherwise it looks like everything else is lighting. So I'll double check. Alright, coils. We'll go to that. Auto launch. So the right magnet. Magnets you can't really tell unless you put a ball by it. I'm guessing it's this one. Have to look underneath the playfield where the magnet might be. Anyway. Right. Oh, they call them jets. It's a Williams thing to do. Right jet. Oh, that's an up post in the back. Okay. There's another post in the back. Left flipper. Left sling. Eject. Center magnet. So this one. Yep. You should be able to just feel a slight pulse. You have to put a ball on it. Oh, duh. Right magnet is over here. Right here. There we go. That works. Okay. That was that center magnet. Ah, they spell center like the European way. That's funny. Alright, lock post. Bang! Alright. Scoop kicker. Good. Beacon topper. Ugh. Well, so on that, I'm going to have to figure out how to do it. So this is a standard, I think I just got this off, I got it off eBay. This is something that like your mailman would use. 12 volt DC. I'm quite sure that I'll be able to find a 12 volt DC something in this game to be able to plug it in. But it's just a matter of, you know, can it be plugged in and work as intended? So I don't know. I think there's some people on Pinside that are working on that, how you'd figure it out. So alright, topper 2. Oh, so one must be for the light and one for the spinning motor, I'm guessing. Oh, because they have two beacons, perhaps. Knocker, so there's no knocker in the game installed anyway. So maybe that's an add-on thing for later. Same thing with shaker motor. And we're back to auto launch. So it looks like all the coils that are in the game are working. Oh, that's cool. So you got a function to empty the pinballs out of the trough. You can do it by hand just by reaching in the coin door and moving the plunger up. So xenomorph test. Well, let's see what that does. Okay. Status is okay. Stop. Reset. Okay. Breathe. Okay. Tease. Huh. Interesting. Shot. Alright. The home. Well, I think it's already at home, so. Loop. Reset. Well, I'm not going to mess with all of it, but there you go. Some xenomorph tests. I think that's it. Oh, sounds. Left and right speaker test.
Left speaker.
Oh. So that is wrong.
Right
That's
speaker.
they have them flip-flopped. What about the cabinet speaker? No test for the cabinet speaker? Alright, so the left and right speakers are flip-flopped, so I'm going to have to flip those around. I think I just wanted to look at some of this stuff. Pricing, system. Okay, whole lot. This is not a whole lot of things to adjust or go into. Set date and time, burn-in tests, system update. I think this is already at the newest code, so I don't think there's anything for me to do there. So I'm not going to mess with it too much right now. But yeah, everything seems to be working. Coil's working, switch is working. I have to check on those stand-up switch lights. And I need to flip-flop the speakers. So, why don't I look at that right now? Left
speaker. Right speaker.
Yeah, so I think they just have it messed up in their service menu. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much, because when I flip-flopped those cords, it did not work. So let me back out of that. I feel like it doesn't need to do that test every single time, but that's just me. It's a pretty loud test. Alright, so now I'm going to just go through and just do a... Oops. Clean the pinballs in the game. Six balls in the game. Alright, start. Oh, let me turn this down. Okay. Sounds like there's also something going on with the sound, because like I turned it down last time. I had it fired up, and it like started with the initial volume higher than what it should be. So anyway, start.
So you ain't figured out we're not home yet.
All right. I just wanted to really check the lock switches. So, okay. Well, at least lock one, that was the one I was concerned with. Wasn't working right. That's working. Well, I'm going to have to find out light locks. Oh, okay. Alright, lock. Got it. Alright. Alright, so drop targets. Hypersleep. Good. Going up. Oh, okay. So as soon as you launch the ball and hit a switch, it goes, and now you're in multi-ball. So, okay. Cool. All right. Still need to look at the lights. I haven't done yet. Let me get out of this and go into the tests and lights. Why did you kick out? Okay, so this should light all the lights. So it was this one, stand-up target here, these two, and this one. I need to lift the playfield and take a closer look at that. Okay. Okay. So let me see if I can figure this out here. This one, this is one that I plugged in. I'll have to look back at the video. Target 2 LED. So that is plugged in, and it is not lighting. Okay. And then these two, target 3 LED, also plugged in. Target 4 LED, also plugged in. And then, what was the last one? It is target, what is this one called? Target 5 LED. That was one that was unplugged. So those were several ones that were unplugged. So there must be something going on. Perhaps something is not programmed right with the LED boards and having these plugged in. But that's where they're supposed to go. So I don't know. They're just not lighting up. So those were all the ones that I plugged in, I believe. I'll have to go back and look at the video. So, what did I say? target 2 LED, target 3, and target 4, so, and target 5. Okay, I guess I don't get those. Alright, otherwise it's all working. So with that, I am going to learn a little bit more about this game, how to play it, what the rules are. Luckily, I currently work with a couple people that know quite a bit about this game. Joe Schober was part of the programming team at Highway. Before that went kaput, so I think a lot of the rules are about the same. And then Dennis Norderman did a lot of the playfield design, so maybe he can answer. There's like some wonky bends in the ramp entry to the entry plate, so I'm not sure what that's about. But anyway, so far, I mean, looks like it's all working. So as I go along, if I see anything else that needs adjustment or changing, I will fire up the camera and let you know. Alright, so going back to what some people were complaining about, the sensitive flipper buttons and like the how much force you have to push this button. And so without changing out the switch itself, what I'm going to try to do here is give it a little bit more tension on the blade, and so you can actually just take a leaf switch adjustment tool. You can get it at any pinball part supplier, and just give this a little bit more tension, because when you push on it, it's not well, let me see what else I can do here. I think I'm going to take this button out and really give it some more tension than what it has. So I need to take this nut out. Typically these nuts, which I can see that they did not do, is there should be a screw on like one side of it, so these don't come loose, and these do not have that. So just be aware that yours might come loose after you play for a while. But I'm going to loosen up this button, get this nut out of the way, and take my switch adjustment tool. I'm going to bend this as far back as I can here. Just give it lots of tension. I'm not messing with this one just yet. So put this back in. There we go. So I think, let me see here, maybe I can give this one a little bit more tension. It does feel better. Not perfect, but better than it was. So yeah, but yeah, just be aware with these, since there is not a screw in the cabinet to prevent these from slipping or loosening over time with play. You might want to get a small wood screw and drive it in so that that nut can't back off because it was pretty loose. There we go. I have it too tight. Okay, well, I think it'll be a little better, but yeah, I was just noticing like I would barely touch it and it would give me a flipper hit, and you don't need it to be that tight. Okay, that's all. One thing I do want to note here is this buckle is the only thing that you have to attach the back box to the cabinet. So typically instead of, they're doing this instead of a roto latch, and so there's no bolt or anything on the inside to attach this. So not that it's a bad thing. I think that it's just, if this thing ever gets mangled when you move it around, which does happen, at least the buckle is on the head or on the back box instead of the cabinet, because when this thing, it happens all the time on older games, this buckle will get beat up because it's on the bottom of the cabinet. But anyway, I just thought I'd point that out. Alright, since I'm doing this anyway, I wanted to show how I level games. On Alien, there's not a bubble level that people might be used to. At this point, I'm just assuming that it's 6.5 degrees pitch, but I'll show you. I use the app Pin Guy. It's all one word, and it's for the Apple. There is another one for Android. It's called Pinball Leveler, both of which are free, and they work pretty much the same. But what I do is remove the glass, and then you want to set it to playfield, and then it'll have a spot where you can set the pitch to whatever it's supposed to be. Again, I'm assuming that it's 6.5. It might be different. I'll have to see if I can dig up on the website what this is supposed to be. I got literally zero documentation with this game. Nothing that tells you to go to the website to register the game. Nothing that says, you know, go here for more information, for the manual, stuff like that. So there's nothing in here. So anyway, so that's why I'm going off this assumption. Anyway, so you set, if you haven't used this before, you set it between the flippers, directly on the playfield, and I've already leveled it. So basically, I crawl underneath the machine and I move the leg levelers. I kind of, you know, like a turtle, and you lift it up and kind of move the back and front legs according to what it's telling you. But then there's one other thing that I'll do once it tells me that I'm good. I'll close the app, because there is a calibration to this app that you need to have it set on a level surface and calibrate it. If you don't do that, then it'll be off. But let me do this. Once you get it right, take a pinball from the trough here, and you want to, so this has a center post and it has a line of inserts going all the way up. That's helpful. And so you just kind of reach up as far as you can, and you let go of the pinball and let it drop, and it should go all the way straight down without any arc to it. Do that a couple of times, make sure that you have it right, and it should drain right down the middle, and that's what you want. Another thing that I like to do is just give it a shake. It should feel solid, that you have your levelers down and they're you don't have one that's kind of off kilter or something. So it should feel like you know, it's balanced from left to right when you give it a little shake for nudging. So that's all I have to say on that. So I mentioned this earlier. There's the two ramps that the ball drops here, and it drops in the same spot every time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little piece of mylar and put directly in the ball drop area, because there's currently nothing, and I can already see that it's you know, the playfield is clear coated. I'm sure it's fine, but just my own personal preference, I'm just gonna, I have a couple of pieces. This is from a pop bumper ring I did from another restoration, so I'm just gonna cut a little piece and put it for each spot. And good tip is to just to wax the area prior to, and then that way if you ever want to peel it up for whatever reason, it's easy to peel off. So little piece of mylar in the drop areas, you know, pretty simple. Alright, going to put the glass back in. Another thing, observation, so when you go up, it's just hitting this channel here, and so I think probably just push this down a bit, bend it down so it can go in there smoother. It still might have to just move your fingers along it so it'll slide all the way up. So another thing of note. Alright, one other thing I noticed that I missed before was this coil for the drop target bank. Same story as the Slingshots, where I changed those, flip the coil around to do the exact same thing to this. The only difference is it's harder to get at the screws for the coil stop bracket, because it's behind here and you have this connector and stuff in the way. So the easiest way to flip this coil around is to unscrew the whole bracket. It's pretty small, and then you can pull the whole thing out and flip this thing around. But otherwise it's exactly the same process. There doesn't look like there's going to be any conflict with cutting any zip ties here, so pretty easy procedure. So I'm just going to do that quick and make it look like the Slingshot coils. Okay. There is one connector here that I'm going to remove the drop target lights. So Oh, well, that's fun. There's a hex head that connects to this, so I'm going to have to hold it with two hands in order to get this bracket out. So somehow I'll be able to get a hex in there from the back side. So I'm going to just do that off camera quick, and I'll show you when I'm done. Alright, so I finished this up. So I flipped the coil lugs are going to the bottom of the drop targets. This way these lugs won't ground out on the coil stop here. So that eliminates that problem. For reference, I used a 932 nut driver for the coil stop bolts, and then looks like a 564 hex key for the back, and it's kind of a little bit of a chore to get in there because it's behind the middle drop target, so you have to kind of get it out of the way a little bit and put it in there. So hold with one hand and loosen the bolt with the other. Another thing I noticed as I was taking this apart, there's a bunch of grease on the drop target mechs, and it's plastic to metal, and so general rule for pinball is you shouldn't need any grease or lubricant for metal to plastic, because eventually this is probably synthetic, so it's probably going to stay fine, but there's just a ton on there. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of alcohol and a Q-tip, and I'm going to run it along each one of the targets and kind of clean some of that excess off, because it just doesn't need to be there. Alright, there we go. Now I'm just going to put it back into its spot and plug it back in. Plug your back in, and that's the other way. Alright, last step is to plug back in the coil. There we go, it's all set. Another thing I want to point out real quick while I'm underneath here is these flipper mechs, they do not have end of stroke switches, and I think I said this earlier where that just has to do with the flipper hold power. And so normally there would be on you know, Williams gains and that it would have a end of stroke switch attached to this bracket here, and as you hit the flipper it would open the switch and then therefore activate the low power. But this is, since there's two lugs on these coils, that means this is a single wound coil, therefore it only has one power, so they're controlling it by the code. And so really the only way that you're going to get the hold power is by what the code says. And so I'll show you on the top side of the playfield when I start up a game, but essentially what's happening is if you're holding the flipper button and a ball comes out of the scoop and hits the bat, it will make the flipper die, and the only way to, so there's no switch here telling it that it died, and even though you're still holding the flipper button. So the only way to make it go back up again is to hit the cabinet flipper button again to make it go back up. So I think some work needs to be done with programming so you got a better hold power, and possibly, I don't even know if it'd be, yeah, so right here there's this plug, it says left flipper end of stroke, right flipper end of stroke. So it looks like they have plans to maybe have a kit or something to be able to plug this in. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to that, because that to me I think is a pretty big issue. So I'll show you an example of that when I start up the game. Alright, I did a little bit more digging while I have some good light here to look at some of those targets. Remember I had some stand-up targets that weren't lighting. It was target 2, and then I had 3 and 4 and 5. Well, one thing I noticed was up here it says target 5 LED connect to board 3. So this is board 4 and this is board 3. So it's this connector, I'm missing this going from one to the other, so that could be why my target 5 is not lighting up, even though it's plugged in. So there's that. I also did notice right flipper end of stroke switch, so it looks like they indeed have plans to put end of stroke switches on flippers here. Let's see if there's one. Yeah, there's one for this flipper over here. So they have plugins for end of stroke switches, just don't have them yet. And I'm not quite sure why my targets, target 2, 3, and 4, I'm guessing because there's a connector going from board 3 to board, what is this, 6. So maybe with this connector I might get those back. So this is the funny thing about how this whole system is, because all of the LEDs and all of the switches are all in these boards, and so that's what's controlling everything. And they're all kind of daisy chained together with these connectors that I mean, they can get pulled out fairly easily. So I think I'm definitely missing one for sure. So there's got to be something that just didn't get plugged in, didn't get caught at the factory. So I'll have to submit a service ticket for that. Alright, so here I'm going to show an example of the end of stroke switch. So I'm going to put the ball into the scoop and then hold the flipper buttons up so the flipper bats stay up, and you'll see what happens. And it just dies. So you have to re-push the. I'm still holding the flipper button on the left side. You have to re-push it in order to make it stay up. Go back into the scoop, hold the flipper buttons up. That's what you have to do. So without end of stroke switches, or with better programming, I looked into the service menu and I didn't see anything for like a flipper hold power adjustment. So in fact, I'll go in and show you that quick. So if I go into the service menu and I go into adjustments and then coils, so I have, you can change you know, some of the, I do make note, I did change the sling power to 20% weaker. I remember on the highway games that these face hugger aliens, I think their appendages would break off, so I wanted to make sure that it doesn't happen on this game. And it just didn't need to be as high as it was, at least for my taste. But anyway, going through these adjustments here, you can change some of it, and I'm wondering if some that are not used might be flipper hold. So I just put it to 10% stronger to see if it would do anything, but I didn't notice a difference. But yeah, so this is just, it'll have like left flipper, right flipper, but there's no distinguish between high power or low power. So I'm wondering if they combined it into one or what. But yeah, no distinguish between the two powers. So okay, that's all I had for that. Well, I was going through some of the service bulletins, and I wanted to point out a few things that I did do. So I see that the ones that I recorded for the coils are in there now, and there was some mention of static for the speakers at times, and usually a reboot fixes it, but you should go to Pinball Brothers website and read it. There's a connector in here that is for the amplifier that you can unplug to get rid of the static permanently. So I did do that, essentially just unplugging these connectors, taking the screws out, and unplugging the connector that they say to unplug. Another thing I did notice too, and I'll show once I lower the playfield, is the saucer on the left. This they're trying to get the feed right, and really what I found is just the coil power is just way too high. So I ended up turning it down almost all the way. But I'll show you some of the coil settings that I did. And then lastly, the stand-up targets. I'll get in on this closer and show you on the top side of the playfield too. But what I'm finding is as I play it, they get loose, and so you can see I'm just wiggling them from the top side. So really these need some Loctite on them. So I did target 3, and so I'm wiggling it from the top side. It's a lot more improved. So let me grab the Loctite here. So get the blue kind, 242, and all you have to do is take the switches out unscrew them, unplug them from the board. Just do one at a time. Put a little drop of this on the screws, and then just tighten them up real good, and then you're going to have to hold the switch as you tighten it, so you kind of keep the backing and the circuit board and everything straight, and then screw them back in. I'm going to end up doing it for every one of these because of how they're loose. So hopefully that will help, and they won't loosen so much over time. So those are the few things that I had noticed. Let me turn the game on, and I will show you the coil settings that I have changed. Alright, if you go into the adjustments and then go to coils, so I did change the auto launch to 10% weaker. I left the trough alone, the right flippers are alone. The right and left slings, they put 20% weaker, just so those little face hugger guys don't break. Drop target reset, I did try a lower setting, but you want to leave that at normal. I left the upper right flipper, the magnets I left alone, pop bumpers I left alone. Left eject 30% weaker, so if you put it on, and you can test it to do what you want to do, but I just did it so it has a nice clean even feed to that flipper, because it was just way too high, and what was happening was it would fire it out and it put a spin on it and it knock it against the wall, and then it would kind of bounce and you wouldn't get a good feed to your flipper. So that's what I found on that. I saw that there was a service bulletin on it, and said they were still working on it, but I think that's the easiest solution to it, and I didn't need to change anything physically. The lock, hyperlock, hypersleep lock, I changed that a little bit weaker. It didn't need to be as strong as it was. Scoop kicker, this is another one, so I showed the how the flipper bats would die, and so it was really just kicking out too hard. It didn't need to, so I found that helped quite a bit. It's not gonna eliminate the problem with no end of stroke switches, but at least the flippers don't immediately die if you. So I put that down as low as it would go. I have to test it some more. If you shoot 2 balls in there, can it get them out? And I haven't had a problem with it yet. So use your discretion on that. I think that's it. Oh, last thing, I did have some screws come loose, this one on this post here, so I added some Loctite to these ones because these get hit a lot, and so adding a little bit of Loctite to those and snugging them up. This is the only screw really holding on this plastic here, so it's kind of important that is tight. Okay, that's everything I had.